All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is July 24th, and this is the monthly meeting of the Board of Directors of West Basin Municipal Water District. So with that, let me ask our staff if you could please do a roll call to determine quorum.
We'll do President Houston. Director Don Deere.
Here.
Director Harold Willoughby. Here. Director Desi Alvarez.
Here.
Director Gloria Gray.
Hello?
Director Gray, we're checking roll call.
Yes, I'm here.
Director President Scott Houston.
Here. With that, let's go ahead and we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. And so I'll go ahead and just lead us in that. So everybody, please rise. Hands over your heart. Ready and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, is there any public comment or
President Houston, we have not received any requests for public comment today. However, this meeting is held both in person and virtually, so we would ask the virtual attendees to raise their virtual hand if they have a public comment to make. President Houston, I do not see any requests for public comment.
Very good. Thank you, Bart. We have no presentation.
We have no presentation for today.
We have no items too late to the agenda, obviously.
We don't.
Okay. We're moving to action calendar. Consent calendar. I have been asked if we could do our closed session first, so.
Let's do it after the consent calendar. If you don't mind.
Okay. We'll do consent calendar and then we're gonna go to closed session. So if we could do the consent calendar, please, Barkev.
Okay, we'll take a roll call.
I would entertain a motion to.
I move that we adopt the consent calendar in its entirety.
I'll second that. Is there any polls or anything against that? Consent calendar? All right, with that, let's go ahead and take a roll call vote.
Director Don Deere.
Here, I mean, yes, no, I did the here part.
Director Harold Williams.
Yes.
Director Desi Alvarez.
Yes, but I would like to record a no vote on 7C and 7D.
Director Gloria Gray.
Yes.
And President Scott Houston.
Yes. Okay, so with that, we will go ahead and move into closed session, staff and everybody on the line. So we are during closed session. Thank you. Attorney, you want to?
Okay, just for the items that are listed on the agenda, which are anticipated litigation, court cases, and real property exception for their properties.
Hello?
Hello.
You are. Okay, hi, Director Gray.
Hi.
Okay, so you're back with us. The rest of the board is here in the room. And so with that, ready, Desiree? We're good? Okay, I'll go ahead and we'll go back into open session. And if our attorney, Joe, could please report out for us.
I report that the board met in closed session and there's no reportable action that was taken.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, so with that, we are going to move into our action calendar.
That's correct.
There it is. Things are double-sided, so. Still looking at multiple flip over back and forth. All right, so with that, the action calendar, item 8A, fiscal year 2023-24 community outreach events. Or Kevin, you'll go ahead and.
President Houston, yes, action 8A is a request for sponsorship, and this item will be presented by Deputy Board Secretary 2, Hazel Vasquez.
Good afternoon, President Houston, members of the board, and everyone else joining us today. If I can turn your attention to packet page 81. Here, item HA, fiscal year 23-24. We have one item for your consideration on the staff report today. Director Houston requests consideration for West Basin Municipal Water District to sponsor the Culver City Arts Foundation Summer Sunset Music Series that is scheduled to be held every Thursday beginning July 27th, 2023 through August 31st, 2023. At this time, Director Houston would like the board to consider a $2,500 sponsorship that would grant West Basin a speaking opportunity for a district representative, a district booth/table to distribute district information, and an advertisement promoting district awareness. West Basin has not previously sponsored this event. I did want to point out that per our admin code section 2-1.306, a requirement for sponsorship, there is a provision where these sponsorships have to be approved by a majority of the board at least 10 business days before the event, with the first day of this event being this Thursday, July 27th. It is definitely not outside of those 10 days. So in addition to the consideration of the sponsorship, before we can actually have you consider the sponsorship, actually, we would have to have the board consider a waiver of the 10-day pre-approval requirement. So before I get to the recommendation, I also wanted to go over the fiscal impact, and that's on packet page 82 for you. Funds for the sponsorship of this event are included in the fiscal year 23-24 community outreach budget in the amount of $75,000. Approval of this sponsorship and the proposed amount of $2,500 would leave a remaining budget of $6,000. And with that, I'd be happy to read the recommendation. Director Houston requests that the board consider 1, providing a waiver for the 10 business day advance approval requirement, and 2, approving sponsorship of the Culver City Arts Foundation Summer Sunset Music Series scheduled to be held every Thursday beginning July 27th, 2023 through August 31st, 2023 in the amount of $2,500. Answer any questions.
Very good, thank you. I just have a question. Do we do this on one motion, Joe, or you do two?
I think it's a pleasure of the board.
Okay, well,
We approve both items.
all right, so we have a motion. And is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the table. Any questions or discussion? Director Gray, any questions?
No question.
All right, seeing none, go ahead and ask for a vote, please. Marquette.
Director Don Deere,
Yes.
Director Harold Williams,
Yes.
Director Desi Alvarez,
No.
Laura Gray,
Yes.
Director Scott Houston.
Yes. Okay, so that passes 4-1. We will move on to the next item, which is 8B as in boy, fiscal year 2023-24 community outreach events.
President Houston, 2 more requests for sponsorship. Hazel Vasquez will also cover this item.
So for this one, if I can turn your attention to packet page 87. As Barb mentioned, we do have two items that we'd like to present for your consideration. The first is a request from Director Deere and Director Gray for the board to consider sponsorship of the 20th anniversary City of Gardena Jazz Festival event scheduled to be held on Sunday, August 27, 2023. Deere and Director Gray would like the board to consider a sponsorship in the amount of $2,500, and that would grant West Basin a district booth/table to distribute district information, as well as an advertisement promoting district awareness. I would like to note that West Basin has not previously sponsored this event. The additional information regarding this particular event, including information regarding the organization as a whole, the event itself, you can find that on attachment E that begins on the back. The second item that we have before you today is a sponsorship requested by Director Williams, and this is for the City of Rancho Palos Verdes 50th anniversary gala. Director Williams at this time is requesting that the board consider approving $1,000 sponsorship that would grant West Basin an advertisement promoting district awareness. And I didn't mention the date, so I apologize for that. This event will be held on Saturday, September 9th. Additionally, West Basin did not sponsor this event in the past, and for more information regarding this event, you can turn to attachment B that begins on packet page 95.
Both items?
Did you read the recommendation yet?
I can't.
Go ahead.
The recommendations is that staff recommends that the board consider approving sponsorship of the 20th anniversary City of Gardena Jazz Festival event scheduled to be held on Sunday, August 27, 2023, and the amount of $2,500 as requested by Director Deere and Director Gray. And number two, the City of Rancho Palos Verdes 50th anniversary gala event scheduled to be held on Saturday, September 9th, 2023, in the amount of $1,000 as requested by Director Williams. And I would like to note that approval of these two sponsorships would leave a remaining budget of $59,500 in the fiscal year 23-24 community outreach budget. And with that, I'd be happy to answer the question.
Okay. Are there any questions? A motion?
Been moved.
All right, I wanted to make sure the recommendation first. So we have a motion by Director Deere. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Director Williams. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and ask for a roll call vote, please.
Director Don Deere,
Yes.
Director Harold Williams,
Yes.
Director Desi Alvarez,
No.
Director Gloria Gray,
yes,
President Scott Houston.
Yes. Very good. That passes 4-1. And so with that, we'll move on to the next item. Ratification of recycled water distribution repairs in Segundo, which is M8C.
Yes, President Houston, this item relates to the ratification of expenditures associated with a repair or replacement of a broken valve in our distribution system. The condition of the valve impacted the service of several customers, and its repair was deemed time critical. The cost of the repair totaled approximately $95,000. West Basin Administrative Code allows for the procurement of critical goods and services. The code requires that such expenditures for critical services be brought to the board of directors at the next regularly scheduled board meeting for ratification. So the recommendation is that the board ratify the expenditures to implement recycled water pipeline distribution repairs and provide a new 6-inch connection and valve on El Segundo Boulevard, east of Aviation Boulevard, in the amount of $95,232.50. I can hand this over to our operations supervisor, Frank Fuchs, for a more detailed report, or in the interest of time, we can open it up for questions.
Okay, what's the pleasure? Does anybody want more information on this? Members? Asking, so,
I'll move the item.
okay, so there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Director Williams. Okay, last call for discussion. And take a roll call vote, please.
Director Don Deere.
No.
Donald Deere.
Please correct.
Will do. Yes. I vote yes. Director Harold Williams. You vote.
Yes.
Maybe speak up.
Director Desi Alvarez.
Yes.
Director Gloria Gray. Director Gray.
yes,
And President Scott Houston.
Yes. Passes 5-0. Thank you. Next is a double-sided. Is it 5D, correct? 5D?
Correct, President Houston. 5D starts on packet page 103. This item was heard at the E&O committee, and the direction of the committee was to move it to the board for further consideration. This item calls for the award of 2 agreements for on-call pump and motor repair, rebuild, and replacement services. The expedited repair and replacement of critical pumping components is essential to maintaining appropriate recycled water production and delivery levels, and having on-call contracts helps West Basin to implement such services in a timely fashion. There was quite a bit of discussion about documentation language at E&O committee, and so we'll open it up for a report and further discussion here today. For this report, we'll turn it over to our operations analyst Jason Cohn.
Good afternoon. As Mark had mentioned, if you can join me on page 103, this item as presented. The February E&O committee, staff looked into restructuring the on-call pump repair services contracts to be jointly combined with the on-call motor repair, rebuild, and replacement services contracts to allow West Basin and its contractors quickly for urgent work, reducing the coordination needed between third parties, and thereby reducing unnecessary recycled water process downtime. Staff issued a request for board proposals on June 4th, 2023, via West Basin's online bid system or cell for the combined on-call pump and motor repair, rebuild, and replacement services contract, for which 200 vendors were notified. I'll cover the results of the RFP a little bit further, but I'd like to highlight that rather than soliciting a request for bids, typically used for a public works construction bidding process, where typically the lowest bid is awarded. The request for proposal was solicited for this effort to allow for competitive upfront solicitation on services that vary between each job order. For example, the scope of each job varies greatly depending on the equipment, the severity of the repair, the installation of the configuration of the equipment, the extent of which is usually not identifiable without first removing the motor and or the pump for assessment. Therefore, staff structured the RFP representing the pricing around 6 actual scenarios, past repairs that we've done. So 3 motor repairs, rewinds and rebuilds of various sizes and ratings, and 3 pump repairs of varying sizes, configuration, and scopes. With each varying complexity of the job, each on-call services help reduce time needed developing and obtaining individual bids each time an immediate repair arises, impacting production and sales. Assets at the various treatment plants are vital to maintaining recycled water production, and responsive on-call services are critical when conducting repairs in a time-efficient manner. A virtual pre-proposal conference was conducted on June 14th, 2023, in which 4 vendors attended. On June 21st, 2023, 3 proposals were received, and based on previous annual spending for pump and motor repairs, and also in anticipation for some of the older assets in need of rehabilitation, combined with rising inflation costs on materials, staff determined the proposed program budget of $1 million to be adequate. 2 vendors are recommended at a starting amount of $250,000 each for initial 1-year term, with an option to renew and add the remaining funds. This format requires awarded vendors to compete by demonstrating the better value of their service, products, and ability to perform appropriate repairs. Representatives from West Basin's Engineering Department, Operations Department, and West Basin's contract operator, Veolia, established the value offered by each vendor by evaluating the following: the proposed rates, of course, on the total of the 6 repair scenarios, the capability of the vendors to repair and rebuild the various types and makes of the equipment, past records of performance. We evaluated professional preferences, the comprehensiveness of the proposal, and of course, the safety record. A summary of the final evaluation scores and rankings are provided in table 1 below, which is on page 104 of your packet. And we've also included a detailed summary of each evaluator for attachment A, which is on page 107 of your packet. West Basin's legal counsel first provided feedback on the solicitation process, and so there is absolutely no ambiguity. Council recommended making findings to support the adoption of a common law exception to competitive bidding limited to this job order contract to allow for West Basin and its contractors to act swiftly for urgent motor work. Things are referred to as the grading exception to competitive bidding after the Grade and B Pasadena Redevelopment Agency case in 1980. The exemption permits job order contracting for repair work that must be promptly secured before competitive bidding could be exhausted. Here, the district's procurement strictly complied with the district's policy governing the procurement of maintenance work, which is a competitive process, and further procurement through competitive bidding for repair work would not produce a meaningful public benefit beyond what the existing process has already achieved. With the current on-call agreements, the district was under the impression that the existing work fell under the public contracting code definition of maintenance. However, after evaluation of the actual work, it was determined that some of this work may fall under the definition of public works or repair instead. Following a value-based competitive bidding process in alignment with legal counsel's suggested language, staff recommends that the board, 1, find consistent with its legislative judgment as follows. These job order contracts for rapid maintenance and repair of pumps and motors for all West Basin operating water treatment facilities were competitively procured. Individual public works competitive bidding for each job order in this contract and is unavailing as affecting the final result. Individual public works competitive bidding for each job order in this contract would not produce any advantage, and it is practically impossible, to obtain what is required and to observe such form for each job order in this contract. And number 2, authorize the general manager to enter into agreements with both PXP and Powers Brothers Machine, Inc. for the procurement of on-call pump and motor repair services for an additional 1-year term at a starting amount of $250,000 each, with an option to increase funds for a total not to exceed program amount of $1 million. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jason. So with that, is there any questions or comments from?
Question.
Yeah, go ahead, Director Gear.
The third place bidder was way off on price. Why the difference, do you think?
They listed quite a lot of subcontractors, and it's a great observation. They listed quite a lot of subcontractors that were a little bit higher priced than what we expected, and their score reflects that on the price proposal. So if you go to the attachment A, you can kind of see specifically why they received the score that they did, and we use the formula to score their price proposal, being full points for the lowest proposal and scale effectively for the highest price proposal.
Secondly, they're in, where are they? Where'd they go? Name of the city. Oh, yeah.
Valley Center,
And where is Valley Center?
it's in the San Diego area, so it's a
Was it?
little bit far from the district, yeah.
Very.
Thank you. Questions or comments?
Waiting for.
Oh, okay, well, I don't really have a question, more like, because I see it was reviewed at entering operations, but it was sent to the full board with no recommendation, so maybe the committee can give us some more information on that. Robert.
I'm gonna just start with a couple of questions and then
Okay.
comments. Effectively, if this is implemented, each one of these 2 firms is gonna get automatically $250,000 worth of work.
The repairs permits. So if we don't have any pumps or motors that fail, of course, they won't be authorized to work, but the maximum of 250,000.
But assuming in the next year that there is work, they're both gonna get at least $250,000.
Correct, at a very minimum.
Okay, and then we're also authorizing that either contract can be extended up to a maximum of an additional $1 million.
If we extend them both equally, it would be $500,000 each.
one of them could get $1 million.
One of them could get 750,000. If we,
Oh, the total amount is not 250 plus $1 million, it's total is, okay,
correct.
all right, thank you. for that clarification. All right, that's pretty significant amount of money for one contract. Now, we do need maintenance and repairs, such as rewinds and rebuilds and things like that, pulling a pump. That's done on an on-call basis, and we have a suite of contractors that have been pre-qualified, and then we solicit bids from those contractors. Is that how that works?
We currently have two contracts, one for motors and one for pumps, and we have one vendor for each on-call contract.
Do we have more than one on-call contractor?
Just one for each, one for motors and one for.
But could we?
Which two? We could, that's the design. of
Maybe
this
that's,
contract.
that's currently what we're doing, but I know we have for engineering services, we have multiple contract, consultants on call. So we could have, multiple, maintenance for electrical, for mechanical, or combine an electrical mechanical contractor to do repairs.
That's
We could
correct.
have more than one.
That's the
So-
design of this current recommendation. To have
That's
two-
not what we're considering here, but that would be something that we could have.
That is what we're considering.
It meets with the other
How about-
existing contracts we have now.
Yeah, and in that venue of type of contract, we could have multiple contractors instead of, right now, we only have one for each. And we could have an on-call contract for mechanical, electrical services, as opposed to having one for mechanical and one for electrical. Under the current arrangement. And then if we had multiple on-call firms, like we do for engineering services, a very simplified process, we could request us to do the work, such as rewind a motor, or replace a motor, or pull a pump.
Correct.
Okay. So in many ways, what we're looking at here is similar,
Absolutely.
as to that process. But going in a direction where we're really not testing anybody by asking for a competitive bid. So we're being asked to make what I think are very, very significant findings. And I, for one, am very uncomfortable making those findings and don't believe that we're acting in good faith if we make these findings. So with respect to finding number one, that it allows for rapid maintenance and repair. Well, we just approved the repair and $100,000 of a repair of a pipeline break that was taken care of, and then it was brought back to the board after the fact. So if we really needed a very quick response, and we didn't have a contractor out there, or even if we did, we would just authorize it and bring it back to the board in the event that it needed to be done. So that argument that for the rapid response, we do have the capability of addressing emergency, and when we have to act, we can act quickly, and we just proved that by the item we approved. Then we're gonna be waiving, and I think that this is really a very significant item. We're being asked to waive competitive bidding. And competitive bidding is in the law in order to ensure that the agency and the public that the agency serves is receiving the lowest possible cost and still getting good service. I mean, you don't have to, the lowest possible response, or the lowest responsible, not an irresponsible bid. So we're gonna be waiving that. That's a big, big deal. And I'm not comfortable with waiving that, nor do I believe that that language is something that is, anybody can say yes, but I don't think that it's sustainable. And with respect to item C, if we had multiple, on-call contractors to do, mechanical repair work, I think that soliciting, and it would be done relatively quickly, as we do for engineering services and other services. I think that it would be nice to know that people know they're competing against somebody else, and that the price that we're getting is not just being the price that's being extended without recognizing that there's competition. So I believe that item C that we're asking to make a legislative finding on is also not sustainable. And then the last item, it is practically impossible to obtain what is required to observe such form for each job order in this contract. In this contract, that may be the case, but it is not the case in general, and it is not the case if we had multiple firms on call. And if we have a very big contract, I still would prefer to get competitive bids. So I do not see the basis for making these legislative findings. I think that we're being asked to do something that's extraordinary, and I'm not comfortable with that. Those are my comments.
Okay, very good. I do see our attorney wanted to say something. Continue discussion with director. Go ahead, Joe. please.
Yeah, and I've got, so Grant Orbach is on the line, who's been advising on this, and I understand where you come from, Director Hours. My understanding, I'll let Grant walk through it maybe, is that this is for the type of situation where the timing does not allow to do a regular competitive bid process. And that's the purpose of the exception, is to allow flexibility for us to immediately go to someone where the timing doesn't work, to do what would formally be required under normal circumstances. So it is an exception, and it's acknowledging that that situation exists. But Grant, maybe you could speak to it in a little more detail if you're on.
Sure. So with respect to the way the word bid is being used in this document, it's being used in the very technical sense of a traditional formal bid with award to the lowest responsive bidder. And with respect to other services, many other services are not subject to a statutory bidding requirement to begin with. A good example of which is architectural and engineering work, which is subject under the government code to a quote, fair, competitive selection process, end quote, and no other requirement here. Ultimately, bidding laws, as was noted, are for the protection of the public, and the case law on it allows a board or a public agency to make legislative findings in the situation where the board would find that applying the bidding laws would be contrary to the public interest. But the board is under no obligation to make those findings. And if the board deems in its legislative judgment it inappropriate, the board is absolutely within its rights to do so. But if the board, under these facts, finds that using competitive bidding would be contrary to the public interest, and when I say competitive bidding, I mean the formal issuing advertisements of bids for a specified amount of work after the need for the work is identified. If the board finds that procuring it in this manner through an RFP is in the public interest, the board's discretion is defensible and is legal, in my opinion.
Thank you, Grant, for that. And also, I actually would just like to ask our general manager, is EJ on here? Is he on? Is EJ, I would just love to hear your perspective. Personally, I'm okay with staff's recommendation here, but I would love to hear what your thoughts are on this.
Yes, this has been discussed now for at least a little while internally. I've had a chance to discuss this with our executive manager of engineering operations. Through him, I've heard the opinions of legal counsel, and I stand by the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Other board members?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Director Gray, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I do, share and respect the comments that Rick Alvarez made, and I think we all want to make sure that when we do award contracts, it does include competitive bidding. But this circumstance, I think, warrants the recommendation of staff, and for that reason, I will be supporting the item. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Director Gray. Director Williams has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. One quick question to staff. Did we have any objections to the bidding process from our bidders? Did we get any complaints?
We did not receive.
None. And with that, I would move the recommendations.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor for the staff recommendation from Director Williams. And, is there a second? I'll go ahead and second it. For discussion.
I don't have much to add. I understand where this is going, and I think that, you can regret that.
Very good. All right, so with that, any further discussion? I don't see or hear any, so we'll go ahead and call for the question and the vote, please. Marquette.
Director Donald Deere,
Yes.
Director Harold Williams,
Yes.
Director Desi Alvarez,
No, and I would like to note that the district already has the right to retain services in an emergency, and that it can do so without competitive bidding and bringing it back to the board for ratification after the fact. And we just took an action prior to this to that effect. And I don't believe that the findings here are substantiated nor defensible and go against the public interest. So I will be voting no.
Director Gloria Gray,
Yes.
President Scott Houston,
Yes. So that passes 4-1. And now we are going to, I know it's letter E, and this is still what, 8? 8E is in Edward. And that is the award of agreement for professional engineering services on the solids handling improvement project. Okay.
in Houston. This is another item that was presented at the committee. And while the drivers and the scope of this particular project has been evaluated over the last couple of years, this specific action item was first presented at the June committee meeting. The committee at that time requested the staff read back this item in July, with some clarifications related to staff's cost saving calculations. At the July committee, the committee recommended that this item be forwarded to the board's consideration. I will hand it over to West Basin engineer John Benner to provide the clarifications and reintroduce the recommendation.
Thank you, Parker. Good afternoon, President Houston, members of the board. Today I'll be presenting an action item recommending a contract award for professional engineering services on the Solids Handling Improvements Project, CIP Project 10059. So agenda item 8E begins on packet page 108. We'll be beginning today with attachment A, which begins on packet page 114. Before we begin, Parker briefly mentioned it, but briefly go over the recent history for this action item. So staff presented this recommendation of award to the E&O committee on June 21st, and were requested to come back with further information about cost assumptions and calculations. So then on July 18th, we came back to the committee with this information. This comprises the first 11 slides of this presentation, and with the same recommendation. So the item was moved forward to the board without a presentation at the committee. Seeing as some members of the board here today weren't present for that committee meeting, I'd recommend actually starting with the main presentation on packet page 127. The main presentation takes approximately 15 minutes, and the additional information slides also take 15 minutes. So I'm happy to come back to those additional information slides at the end, if requested. Page 127. So this slide begins with some background on the project. The solids handling improvements project is a key part of our capital improvement program. It has been deemed one of the top 3 most critical projects in our program by both West Basin staff and our contract operators. Over the last year, we've presented multiple items at the E&O committee for this project and have had many staff reports move forward to the board. The most important of these being the overall project review in October of last year and the filter cloth replacement action item in February of this year. This project concerns the solids handling system out at ECL. The system removes the solid sludge from our treatment processes, compresses it into dry cakes and deposits them into trucks to be hauled away for reuse, mostly disposals. This is vital for West Basin's recycled water program. If the solids handling system fails, we will not be able to produce recycled water. The largest component of this system is the final stage, which is comprised of 2 plate and frame filter presses, or PFF. They are housed in the large dewatering building at the back left end of the park. Both of these presses and their associated systems were installed in 1995, and most of the major components are now in a poor or very poor condition. This poor condition has caused rapidly escalating maintenance, solids haulage, and chemical treatment costs. Our estimates show that this current state is currently costing the district approximately $250,000 per month in increased O&M costs.
How much is that again? I'm sorry.
$250,000
Per
a month. West Basin has conducted 3 studies into this issue, one in 2018, one in 2021, and the final one last year. These studies conducted condition assessments of our current system, assessed alternatives and solutions to the escalating costs, and even undertook a small-scale trial of one of the suggested alternatives. Evaluating all of these studies and assessing the current costs of running the system in such a poor condition, West Basin staff has recommended proceeding with option B, the refurbishment of these plate and frame filter presses, due to the anticipated payback period of 4.7 years. A more detailed analysis of the various options and how the refurbishment option was selected can be seen in the project review information item, which was presented last October. The chart here on the right shows the return on investment calculation. The refurbishment costs are shown against the do nothing option of simply maintaining the system. Effectively, despite the significant capital expenditure of approximately $15 million for the refurbishment, the district will begin to realize substantial savings from year 5 onwards due to the significantly reduced annual operating cost. So this is one of those rare projects where we can expect to realize immediate improvements across a number of areas once it's completed. The O&M costs for this press system are escalating rapidly year on year. The chart to the right here shows the actual historical expenditure of the system and then forecast expenditure we experienced in the last fiscal year. As you can see, we experienced significant increases last year in both haulage and annual part costs due to a new haulage contract and multiple component failures. This fiscal year, we can expect these costs to continue rising, with a sharp increase in chemical costs due to a new line procurement contract that came into effect on July 1st. We can expect all of these costs to continue increasing as we move forward with our solution. This refurbishment project aims to significantly reduce every category on this chart, except for electrical costs, which will remain similar. Our current estimates indicate that we could reduce our annual expenditure on this system from an anticipated $6.1 million per year in 2023-24 to around $3.1 million. That's an annual saving of $3 million per year, roughly cutting out O&M costs by 50% annually. Detailed breakdowns of each of these, including the assumptions we've made for projected costs, can be seen in those first 11 slides that we prepared for the recent committee meeting. So I'm happy to go through those in detail at the end. But the refurbishment wouldn't just improve financial aspects. The solids handling system is such a critical element of our recycled water production system that it has a major impact across our entire production. The inefficient management of solids has led to significant amounts recirculating in the system at ECL. These recirculating solids place considerable strain on our system. They wear out filters and membranes more quickly and foul systems more frequently. While our ops team undertakes valiant effort in preventing this from having a significant impact on the water we produce, occasionally by supplementing with potable water, we have had complaints of odor issues and water quality from both our neighbours and our customers. With refurbished presses, we would be able to extract these recirculating solids from the system over time, significantly reducing these issues and making producing clean, high-quality water much easier. Next slide. So what does this refurbishment actually entail? There are 4 main sections to the refurbishment, detailed here in the order the sludge flows through the system. First off, we'll replace the 2 original sludge conditioning tanks. leaving the 2 other tanks that were replaced in 2013. We'll also replace all 4 feed pumps and the associated feed piping. These have been in place since 1995 and are continually failing. Spare parts for these pumps have been harder and harder to acquire in recent years due to the pumps no longer being manufactured. And this has led to significant inefficiencies in the system. We aim to replace them with the most cost-effective alternative, perhaps even reducing their number to 3 more efficient versions. In terms of the presses, we aim to only replace the components that have completely failed or are irrelevant. Most of these will be procured off the shelf or in kind, significantly reducing both the design cost and lead time. We aim to refurbish several other components, such as the filter plates themselves, which will be shipped off to a facility to be recoated. The largest components on the presses, the steel A-frames and the top rails, will be left as they are, as our condition assessment shows that they still have remaining useful life. But we will also be replacing the entire instrumentation and control system. Installed in 1995, it is significantly outdated and much of it no longer works. The presses are designed originally to be run automatically, with an operator simply pressing the start button. Fortunately, due to instrumentation failures and replacement parts no longer being available, they have been run entirely manually for many years now, which requires an operator to be physically present at the manual control panel throughout the entire 2-hour process. And that's 2 hours per press. We run 8 to 12 presses per day, so it's significant. Installing a new INC system that could be operated even remotely from the ECL control room would significantly cut operator time and effort. The overall aim here is to replace as little as possible, refurbish existing equipment wherever we can, and retain components that are still serviceable. So this slide depicts the overall project schedule. All changes from the last update are in red text. The diamonds here represent board presentations, while the boxes represent staff actions. In the top left, you can see the project review that staff presented to ENO last October. We then presented several items concerning the replacement of all 280 filter cloths, which was a quick win action aimed at immediately, but temporarily reducing haulage costs. These were fully installed in May, and details of their impact can be seen in the first few slides of this presentation. This action item concerns the award for professional engineering services on this project. As you can see, the chart here shows a professional services award amount of $1.1 million. This total includes design work, engineering services during construction, and a 10% contingency. If the contract before you today is awarded, staff intend to come back to the board later this year with both recommendations for pre-procurement awards and the results of the preliminary design report. This preliminary design report, or PDR, will contain updated estimates on both project costs and the projected payback period to facilitate further discussion about the project progress with the board. Next slide, please. So this slide depicts the anticipated schedule for this design phase that we're recommending the award of today. So the phase will have 7 tasks. As you can see, most of them will be completed within 8 months of the contract award, with both tasks 1 and 7 continuing into the construction phase, which is anticipated for another 12 months. Tasks 2 through 6 will be kept to a very tight schedule, with tasks such as preliminary design report normally taking much longer than a standard project. We're placing this project on such an accelerated schedule so as to reduce those excessive monthly O&M costs as soon as possible, and try to shorten that 4.7-year payback period as quickly. The preliminary design report, or PDR, that's task number 3 here, is arguably the most significant task. Its role will be to list all of the components we intend to replace or refurbish and split them into 2 categories. You can pre-procure off the shelf to save time and cost, and those that will require a full design package. The PDR will also present a reassessment of that 4.7-year payback period with updated assumptions and scheduling. This presents a comprehensive check-in point whereby West Basin staff and the board can progress and return on investment. So the current aim is to bring the results of this PDR back to the board later this year before any further costs are accrued after this recommendation. This slide details West Basin's purpose regarding the issuing of this contract and how staff would approach the potential risks inherent in it. The overall purpose of this project is to refurbish the system in a cost-effective manner whilst minimizing the impact on our daily operations. As we've discussed before, this project has a potential payback period of 4.7 years. There are several things that could change this project coming in on the budget, bring forwards that return on investment, and likewise, an over budget project would increase it. Also important to note that this estimate assumes that our influent water quality remains steady and reasonably good quality over the next few years. A dip in water quality from Hyperion could raise our baseline O&M costs considerably. which would make this project even more vital and potentially significantly reducing that payback period. As with better equipment, we would be able to more quickly remove higher solids content from inflow water. But the 4.7-year target constitutes our baseline. The aim is to shorten that payback period as much as possible. It's always important with such finely balanced projects to consider the potential risks. This slide details 3 main potential risks as we move forward with the refurbishment project and how we intend to mitigate them. The first of these two of these three risks concern scope creep due to the results of the condition assessment verification. So these risks will be able to fully identify them in that PDR stage, and so we can bring them back to the board if any of those risks are incurred. The third risk is an ongoing risk concerning procurement issues that are currently plaguing the industry. This risk will be mitigated by having the consultant maintain a live procurement list with continually updated quotes, lead times, and scheduling issues. This slide shows a chart we've seen a couple of times already. It depicts the net present value of both the do nothing option A and the proposed refurbishment option B over a period of 15 years. The table to the right here shows the anticipated savings of undertaking the refurbishment. As you can see, the initial capital expenditure of the project over the next 2 years is offset by O&M savings with each passing year, both during the second year of the project and upon its completion. It's anticipated the break-even point will occur at some time in late 2027, with these savings leading to a net positive after that point. Noted that per recent discussions with our counterparts in Los Angeles Sanitation, it seems that the potential switch to MBR influent water at ECL would be occurring in 9 to 10 years at its earliest. This would result in the refurbishment realizing cost savings to the district of between $15.5 million and $19.5 million at that time. So this slide details the solicitation process we followed to arrive at our recommendation today. On March 21st of this year, we posted the request for proposals on our online procurement system, Marcel, and we also advertised it on our website and through social media. We had 17 consultants state on the e-procurement systems they were participating. That means they've downloaded the documentation and have clicked a button stating they intend to participate in the process. The proposal presentation and site tour was held on March 30th. It was attended by 14 people representing 6 separate consultants. On May 11th, West Basin received 3 proposals, which were then reviewed by 4 West Basin staff members over the following week, according to the scoring schedule that can be seen in attachment B. All consultant references were contacted with no adverse comments or items of concern registered. All 3 respondents were invited to interviews the week of May 22nd. These interviews were conducted with a panel of 5 people, the original 4 staff members, and 1 external panelist from the city of El Segundo. The interviews consisted of a short presentation followed by a set of questions asked to each candidate. They scored out of 20, and this added to the proposal score for a total score of 106 available points. The highest scoring candidate was Arcadis US Incorporated, who are being recommended on a best value basis with a total negotiated cost of $998,440. The individual scoring can be viewed in detail in attachment B on packet page 143. I should note here that one of the main reasons Arcadis scored so well is that they have undertaken a very similar project recently in Ohio, refurbishing several plate and frame filter presses from the same manufacturer as ours and installed at the same time. Their proposed project team incorporates many of the same members that undertook that project in 2018, and so they were deemed one of the safest choices for this design, with little risk of costly change orders or unwelcome surprises. This slide depicts the anticipated expenditure on this project in each fiscal year moving forwards. As you can see, the bulk of the expenditure over the last fiscal year was on replacing the filter cloths, work which was completed in May for a total of $174,000, shown here is the nearest 10,000. The results of that replacement can be seen in the first few slides of this presentation. This engineering services contract is approved. We intend to begin designing the project next month. The design work itself is intended to take approximately 8 months and cost a total of $830,000. Form the bulk of the contract we're discussing today, with $170,000 of the contract being for engineering services during the construction phase. In this fiscal year, we also intend to begin pre-procurement of the longer lead time components. As you can see here, we anticipate an initial expenditure of $800,000 and the total expected $4.7 million pre-procurement cost, with the remainder of this cost falling in the following fiscal year. We also anticipate initial construction towards the end of this fiscal year. We're aiming to award the construction contract in the spring. However, we will be onboarding a construction management consultant prior to that to assist us in the bidding phase. This work results in an anticipated expenditure of $2.7 million this fiscal year, which is the same as the amount allocated to the project in the 2023-2024 CIP budget. The construction will fall in next fiscal year, 2024-2025, with an intended completion date in early summer of 2025. The year in which most of the pre-procured items will arrive. And so you can see an estimated $3.9 million of expenditure there. These two items combine to generate the bulk of the project expenditure of $12.3 million next fiscal year. This penultimate slide details the entire project expenditure from the early internal work in 2016 through to the projected end of the project. By the time this project concludes in 2025, the total anticipated expenditure will be $15.95 million. Of the latest refinery agreement amendment in 2021, West Basin has secured $2,635,590 of refinery funding. This brings West Basin's total expenditure across the life of the project to $13,310,000. Note here, if we were to base our return on investment calculation purely off of our own expenditure, that 4.7-year break-even point would be reduced to 4.2 years. Noted that this refinery funding has been paid to the district by monthly installments and would need to be refunded to the refineries if this project is cancelled as per those agreements. So that brings me to the recommendation before you today. Staff recommends awarding the contract for professional engineering services on the solids handling improvements project to Arcadis US Incorporated for a contract amount of $998,440 with a 10% contingency of $99,844 for a total not to exceed amount of $1,098,284. With that, my presentation's finished. There's a couple of slides after this one that show images of the presses in their current state. And as mentioned, I'm happy to go back to the first place to more thoroughly deep dive into the details behind O&M calculations. But
Very good. Thank you, John. And we'll go to anything if anybody wants to see that, but let's go ahead and we'll open this floor up. Are there any questions or comments from board members? Yes, sir. Director Alvarez.
If there are no comments, I'll move the recommendation. But I would like to have the staff bring back, as John had said, you can bring back the PDR report with on part of the presentation. Where the tasks were described. Excuse me. Back each one of those tasks as they're accomplished, like the PDR report, but the verification of assessment or the condition assessment verification and the design, et cetera, so we can review it as it progresses. With that, I'll make that motion.
So I heard a motion. I couldn't hear it very well. So can you please, someone reiterate what it was that Director Alvarez
I
is
will
asking?
repeat the motion, and I'm sorry, I had something in my throat. I move the staff recommendation and request that they bring back the results of each one of the tasks, that the tasks are completed, that John described when he went over the slide that had the design phase. There were multiple tasks. We talked about the preliminary design report being brought back. There were other tasks. I think it'd be nice to see each task that's been accomplished. If there are questions, we'll address them at that time.
Okay, so I heard the motion, and I think Desiree probably got that in the record, I assume. And I think I heard a second, Director Williams. And my only question on that is, where does that come back to? Where they give those
Well, it'd be a
updates?
traditional way, and board.
What's that?
And board.
Very good. They're just status updates. All right. Any other questions? Hearing none, and by the way, Director Gray texted me that she has to jump off, so she will no longer be in this meeting. So there's 4 of us still here. With that, I'll go ahead and call for the vote, please. Marquette.
Valdir,
Yes.
Director Harold Williams,
Yes.
Director Desi Alvarez,
Yeah.
Director Gloria Gray. Oh, not- not
I'm
in the
actually
meeting.
gonna vote,
Oh,
I'll
oh.
vote yes, and then
Oh,
I'll get off.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, and then I'll get off. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Director
Right.
Gray. So noted.
Thank you,
Thank
Director
you.
Gray.
Bye-bye.
And President Scott Houston.
Yes. That passes unanimously, 5-0. Thank you very much. Thank you, John, for that presentation. Let's see, item 8F is in Frank, the establishment of ad hoc committees.
Yes, President Houston, this action item calls for the establishment of 2 ad hoc committees, an ad hoc committee for matters regarding West Basin and WRD partnership, as well as an ad hoc committee for matters regarding West Basin facilities operations. This item was heard at the F&A committee, and the committee moved this item to the board for a vote. I will read the recommendation. Staff recommends that the board establish an ad hoc committee for matters regarding West Basin Municipal Water District and Water Replenishment District Partnership, as well as an ad hoc committee for matters regarding West Basin facilities operations, and that the board president appoint directors to the committees.
Great, thank you, Barkhead. Who has heard at finance, I think the recommendation from finance was to move forward with this. If I recall with Director Williams. I wasn't here. You were here, but that's our finance committee. We were here together. Yes. Am I wrong? Am I here?
Director Gray.
Director Gray was here. I'm sorry.
I know where it was, man.
Okay. You were absent. Director Gray was there. Yeah, sorry. Even I'm off today. For what it's worth, the committee recommended this moving forward. So it is what it is. You're going, if this gets approved, as the board president, I'll appoint 2 directors to each of these ad hoc committees. That's in our code. So any further discussion on this?
If this item is just to move this recommendation forward, I'll make a motion to move it forward.
Very good. We have a motion on the floor. And there's a second. And I apologize, Director Williams.
That's all right. I'll take the appointment.
Oh, there you go. Okay. All right. So with that, Barkhead, we should go ahead and take our roll call vote.
Director Donald Deere,
Yes.
Director Harold Williams,
Yes.
Director Desi Alvarez,
Yes,
Director Gloria Gray, and President Scott Houston.
Yes. So that is a 4-0. Thank you, Barkhead. Our meetings have been all over, so I can't keep track of who was where and what. Okay, so with that, we're moving into our information calendar, which we have no item. Correct.
Excuse me, when are you gonna fill these positions?
I'm gonna fill them immediately, but we don't have to do them here. I just make the appointment and let you all know. Okay. All right, with that, let's see. Item 10 is our receive and file. Entertain a motion to receive and file all items. I got a motion from Alvarez. Is there a second? Second from Deere. Any questions, discussion? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and call for roll call vote.
Director Donald Deere,
Yes.
Director Harold Williams,
Yes.
Desi Alvarez,
Yes.
Director Gloria Gray, and President Scott Houston.
Yes. Okay, general manager's activities report. General manager still on the line.
President Houston, the general manager and I will work on preparing a summary report and submitting that for the board.
That would-
thank you.
That would be great. And you can reiterate if you all could get that hopefully in the next 1 to 2 days to the board. Very much. General counsel's report, item 12.
Nothing to report.
Very good, thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, reporting compliance. Does any director have something to report?
No, thank you.
None from Director Williams. None from Director Alvarez. Director Deere?
No, I just went to the committee meetings, so I would have turned in the paperwork.
Okay, very good, thank you. Let's see, I will just note what I did, so, having the record. And this goes back a little bit beyond our last board meeting, but on June 15th, I made a presentation at the El Segundo Kiwanis Club organization. On the 22nd of June, I made a presentation at El Segundo Rotary meeting. On the 4th of July, I attended the Exchange Club's fireworks show in Culver City and had the opportunity to speak, as well as they recognized our sponsorship of that event. So that was part of our sponsorship on multiple levels. And on July 10th, I attended the Met Board meeting virtually, and on the 11th, the next committee meeting virtually. Or my name was reversed. That's right. So with that, that's all I have to report at this moment. Anything else on that? Hearing none. Closed session, we've already taken care of closed session, and now we are at director's comment for future agenda items. So I'd like to go first if there's any comment.
I just made a comment to you once before that on these committees we formed today, I suggest you include at least one or if not both directors who had been dealing with WRD originally to this committee.
Perfect. So noted. Thank you. Director,
No, thank you.
Director Alpert.
My only comment is, finally, the water board released the, regulations for direct portable reuse. Some of the requirements in there are, pretty esoteric, but at least we can move forward. I love 20 log reductions.
Okay.
But anyways, finally, that's moving forward.
Yes. Okay, thank you. And on that note, I'm not sure if Bev sent us a copy of that, but could you send us a copy of that, please? It's all 5 directors, so we have links to it and read that, etc. Let's see, with that, I just want to say thank you, staff, for all the work. Obviously, you're doing a lot over the course of the month, and we do appreciate that. Also, I know we had one of our interns here earlier, no longer here because we got a closed session, so welcome to our new interns in various departments. I don't have anything else personally either, so with that, our next scheduled meeting will be held on August 28th, 2023. With that, we're adjourned. Thank you.
President Houston, staff.